Unity of Houston is an inclusive church where we seek to understand and live the teachings of Jesus and other spiritual masters. At Unity, we welcome all people from all spiritual paths and every walk of life. We celebrate the diversity of our city and of our world, and we teach love, tolerance, and oneness, seeking to live in harmony with open minds and open hearts.
Wherever you are in your spiritual path, you are always welcome at Unity. Join us and discover that the life of your dreams is already within you.
Wow, thank you for that, Reverend Jean Marie. All right. I bless you. I bless all the staff. I bless Michael and all the people that are with him on a retreat today. I thank him for the invitation to come and speak and be with you. I love coming back here. I love the energy. I love the people. I thank all of you who are here, who have turned out. I thank those of you who are home in your jammies for turning on the TV and being with us in some form. And I always have a lot of gratitude. I have gratitude throughout my entire life, and that's a powerful, powerful energy that puts you close to God. The more gratitude you have, the more sense of closeness you have to the life that is living and breathing you. And so anyway, thank you for being here. Today I want to talk about the known and the unknown. And some of you, know me and have known me, and others of you, I'm an unknown. This may be the first time. But there are two realms from which we live, all of us as a soul. There are two dimensions, if you will, and that is the known and the unknown. And so we will always have a realm of unknown, at least in this life, where we don't know it all. There are questions that we don't have the answers for, but we know there is order to the universe. And so we have to trust. We realize certain things have to be chalked up as a mystery. And it's okay, because out of a mystery, we simply trust that there is answers, that there are orders, there is an order to it, and there are solutions. Most familiar to all of us is the known, and what is known was once an unknown. Everything that we have come to know from childhood on, it first began as an adventure, newness, and that was what is so important about what Jesus taught about childlikeness. It's the idea of just everything is fresh and new and experiencing for the first time, and that's about living in the moment. And so as a child, we started out with what was new, and it would be, it might be food, it might be going to school for the first time and learning things and reading and writing, and it was nature and trees and flowers, and it's like everything was new, seeing a mountain for the first time if you lived in the plains, and it was like that. And then, as we grew into adulthood, it was it was unknown to us driving a car, so that was new. And maybe it was the first time we flew in an airplane at some point. And then there was marriage, and there was sex, and there was childbearing, and not necessarily in that order. And but many things unknown became known. Now, as life unfolds, it seems like often the known fills our life, and there's less and less of the unknown because we've experienced so much. We say, yeah, I know that. Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah, I've experienced that. Yeah, I've been there. And so we don't have that same amount of fresh aliveness that we did about an unknown for the first time. And we have to bring that really to a part of life. The known becomes basically our history. It's our stored knowledge. The known is our past. It's all the things we've come to know and experience and see and what have you. And we need that. We need that for survival. We need to understand the do's and the don'ts and a respect for laws, gravity and electricity and various things like that. But spiritually, we have been taught the importance of living in the now. And we have to understand that the known is nothing but the past. Everything that you've seen, you've experienced, it's the past. And our past is basically our conditioning, our programming, our memories, all of it. There's nothing wrong with that. But sometimes we also have memories of things where we have erred, mistakes we've made and so forth. And we bring that known into ruining and interfering with the unknown moment that you are in. And that's a big part of learning experience as well. And so the known can sometimes interfere with the unknown. And that feeling of being new to something. You know, there's that wonderful analogy of the 6 blind men that went to the fairgrounds and they experienced an elephant for the first time, and each one touched a different part of the elephant, and one felt its side and said that, well, it felt like a wall, and one felt its tusk and that was like a smooth spear, and one touched the leg and it felt like a pillar, and one touched the trunk and felt like a big snake, and one touched the tail and it felt like a rope, and one touched the ear and it felt like a big fan. And so they all had a description of what it was, and it was all different. And so the elephant was unknown to them, and it remained unknown to them. What they had come to know was not accurate at all. They knew only a piece and a part of the elephant. They didn't know the whole truth. And so many of us, in living this life, we know bits and parts and pieces, and we're blind to the whole truth. We have to be okay with that, but we have to also understand that life is about expanding and increasing and broadening, and that can only happen in the moment when you allow yourself to be potentially creating the space for something unknown to make way into your experiences. And so, the known, we have to realize is that getting in the way? Like seeing a flower. Well, I've seen a flower before. No, you have never seen this flower in this moment of time. And that's the childlikeness, the freshness, the aliveness. We have to bring that to the moment. When we do, there's more things that are actually opening up to us because we have that willingness. Some of you study the Course in Miracles, right? And in the Course in Miracles, I love that too. And the workbook has lessons and lesson numbers, and actually there are 3 consecutive lessons 7, 8, and 9, that really address this idea of the known and the unknown. Lesson 7 says, I see only the past, because the past is my history, it's my known. Number 8 lesson says, my mind is preoccupied with past thoughts. Number 9 lesson is, I see nothing as it is now. You may be in the moment, but you're really not seeing the moment as it is now. You're not seeing the whole truth. You're just seeing the trunk or the ear or whatever, the tusk, not the whole. We have to give ourselves to that. Freedom is actually a state of not knowing. Freedom, they say, is about unlearning, so that you can be fresh and whole and complete, Creativity is about the unknown, not knowing. You have to get out of the way of all the things that you know so that the new can be born. You have to create that space because sometimes the known interferes and gets in the way. A deeper reality and sense of truth and of God. The dimensions of the unknown can be realized, they can be felt, they can be experienced, but only when we're free of our attachment to a known. And that's what basically inventors know. For the Wright brothers, the known was man can't fly. For Thomas Edison, the known was the only kind of light is a flame on a candle or in a lantern. For Thomas Salk, the known was polio is incurable. They had to transcend knowns to be able to believe another dimension of something existed, to allow the ideas and the universe and the good to come forth in. For any kind of advancement, that is the case. It's the same for problem solving in our lives. So many of us get lost in the known, our history, where we went wrong, mistakes we made, hurts, wounds, whatever. And we're not able, it gets in the way and interferes with the moment, in our advancements. We're to be in the world and not of it. And we understand that there are various levels. There are levels where we know things and have known and experienced, and there are other levels that we don't. We have yet to open to full understanding and clarity. Jesus said, "You are from beneath, and I am from above. You are of this world. I am not of this world." You are of this world, meaning this world is what you know. That's the world of the known. But I'm not of this world. I'm of other levels and dimensions that has clarity and understanding in this universe that yet you have not stepped into the known. It's unknown to you. And so in our current state, as I say, there's mystery, and have to be okay with mystery as we progress and grow and unfold. I'm intrigued with some of the stories of survival, where one person has an amazing experience, survives where others do not. And sad it is, but and knowing that, physically we have a body, but we're not our body, we're a spirit. So we need to know that. But still, I'm intrigued. When I was in ministerial school in the 70s, there was a minister who, Bob Sicking was his name. And he's an ordained minister. And after being ordained, he found his way to the position of director of the Association of Unity Churches, as it was called then. So it was a big position. And so he wasn't on the faculty, and one day he came and spoke to us as a student body, the ministerial students. And he shared some experiences that he had had when he was in the war, World War II. He was in the infantry. He was really talking about consciousness and what it is and what it isn't. And so anyway, he talked about a time that as he was in the infantry, he was in a line walking with his company of their soldiers. And he said they were pretty close together, but all of a sudden, mortar shells came flying in, and they all hit the dirt. And one shell landed on the back of the man that was in front of him. He died, and the man ahead of that man died. And he said that the force of the shell blew a 6-inch diameter tree away that he landed next to. And he said that it sheared off his helmet, his backpack, his shirt, his pants, the elastic on his underwear, the backs of his boots. He said, in other words, it completely shaved me. But I was unharmed. I didn't even have a cut. He shared another time where he was in a foxhole. He said, sometimes you're in these foxholes for a long time. You happen to be in this foxhole for weeks, he said. And so, period of time, nothing's happening. He was just sitting there, like sitting on a chair almost, if that they don't have a chair, but it was sitting there. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, a mortar shell flew in and landed between his knees. He, like a flash, flew out of the foxhole, he said, as fast as it had come in. But he said he would have died if it hadn't been a dud. A dud. And so then he asked the student body, he said, did his consciousness save him? He said he was like any other young man his age. He said, I got drunk with the boys. He said, I was no angel at that time. And he basically said, I don't have an answer for you. There are mysteries. There are things that are unknown, that we don't understand. Why others passed and I somehow didn't, and went on. I have another quick, amazing story to share with you that caught my attention. I was catching a flight. This was only 2 years ago. And I can't remember where I was going, but I remember that I bought a New York Times newspaper. And so on the flight, I was reading it, and actually I have it with me just to, you do believe me. Okay. And there was a whole article, the whole front page and the whole back page that was about a lady. This was about an incident that happened to her 50 years prior. She was now just retired. And she was 17 years old, and she had gotten on a flight in Lima, Peru. And it was supposed to be a short flight, no longer than an hour. And going to a port city and in Peru. And they flew into a thunderstorm, and a bolt of lightning hit the airplane 25 minutes into the flight. There were 95 passengers and crew on that flight. It threw it into a nosedive, and the plane actually broke up. And she said, the next thing I knew, I was no longer inside the airplane. I was outside in the open air. And she was conscious of this. And the 3-seat bench, which she was belted into, was spinning its way to the earth. And she could see the earth approaching. And then she blacked out. She regained consciousness hours later. This happened on Christmas Eve. She regained consciousness the morning of Christmas Day. She had fallen almost 10,000 feet, almost 2 miles up, and had fallen to earth. And she was the sole survivor. Miraculously, her injuries were minor. She got out of this, and it was said that the foliage was so thick that it had cushioned the impact of her hitting the earth. And she had minor injuries, and for the next 11 days, she waded and walked and swam her way out of the jungles of Peru and lived. And went on, got a PhD in biology, and became an eminent zoologist recognized in her field in Germany. That's that. Why her among 50 or 92 passengers? Those are things we don't necessarily understand, you know. We don't. Our life is really about increase. Those of us that are here, that have been given this life, we are to bring some element of increase to the life, whether it be our family or people we work with, or increase even in terms of the expansion of our consciousness, which is to bring more energy and more light into the world. We're here about increase, okay? And, you know, some people are very invested in the known, and that's okay. You know, I even think of travel as one thing. Some people like to go back to the same place, the same resort, or the same hotel in the same country. I have people I know that have gone to the same country, the same resort, the same room, I think, for 16 years. I think, and that's wonderful, you know. And what lights my fire is to go to some place new and different. So I have that childlikeness in it. Show me people who live different and have different customs and different spiritual beliefs and ideas and different beauty and you know, it's all new to me. It's alive. You know, it was mentioned that I do some travel annually. I lead a pilgrimage somewhere in the world, and last year it was to Peru, and this year it's to Thailand. And Michael told me during my lesson I should let the people know I'm going to Thailand in case anyone is interested, and tell them there's a sign up there at the greeting line, and to learn more. That's my commercial. So I thank him for allowing me to do that. But you see, God is a constant flowing stream of newness. The newness is there, but we may not see it because we're lost in unknown. Everyone is seeking increase. Think about it. More love, more peace, more joy, more freedom, more prosperity, more knowledge, more beauty, more pleasure, more, better. It's ingrained in us. But we must not lose sight of more of the light, of the moment, of the unknown dimensions of us. You know, our curriculum is know thyself, because there is so much unknown to the beauty, the dimensions of love and peace and joy and goodness that are inherent in you as a child of God. We've come to bring forth that advancement, that increase as well. It's amazing. You know, we're a light in the world, we're told by Jesus, and we're called to increase that light. And you know, Thomas Edison, I was reading a bit about Thomas Edison, and that man was about bringing increase and advancement and greater good to help people and humanity. He had over 1,000 patented inventions. Just think about that. Over 1,000. He was a seeker of increase and understanding and exploring the unknown. When he was 6 years old, he was on a farm, and he had noticed that a goose in there had a nest and was sitting on, and later he saw, gosh, something hatched there. He was only 6 years old. And so then he's still 6 years old, and later, a few weeks later or something, they couldn't find him. So finally, they found him in the barn, and he was curled up in what he had made, which was a nest. And he had stolen a few goose eggs, and he was sitting on them. This is Edison, okay? He was a seeker from the time he was 6. When he was 7, he developed scarlet fever and partial deafness. And at age 8, then he was taken out of school, apparently because he couldn't hear, and they didn't have hearing aids. And at age 10, he created a laboratory in his basement in Michigan at age 10. And his first wife died, and then he was, fairly up in years, but he married again a striking brunette, half his age. And in his courtship, he said his deafness was a help. He was quoted on that. He said, I taught the lady the Morse code. That's how they talked. And he said, and when she could both send and receive with the Morse code, we got along much better than we could have gone with the spoken word. He shared that. But he never lost a passion for life and everything. In fact, he checked into a hotel once, and in the hotel it had a couple of questions just to find out about people attending the hotel. And one of the questions was interested in, and there was a blank. And they have found that guest book, and it said, everything, question mark, not question mark, but exclamation point, exclamation point. He was an amazing man, did amazing things, was an inspiration. I was also reading about Ludwig van Beethoven. How many of you know about Beethoven? That's a field, those who are in music for sure know about him. He was one of the greatest composers ever to live. And he brought music from the unknown into the known, clearly, just as Edison brought things from the unknown through all his inventions. It was what they were about. Well, in the last decade or 10 years of his life, he was deaf. He started going deaf when he was 30, but he was really, basically, completely deaf the last decade of his life. And during that last decade, he created some of the greatest works. He couldn't even hear the music that was coming through him in an unknown dimension where he could hear the music and he could compose it, but he could never get to hear it except within his own soul. Because he opened up to a dimension of the unknown, and he was able to put aside the known. He couldn't hear. He wouldn't be able to hear the notes, the playing of a piano or this instrument or that instrument. And so one of those famous works of his final years was the Ninth Symphony. Okay, and the Ninth Symphony had 4 movements to it. And in the 4th movement, he was the first to add voice. Voice. And basically, they sang what were the words from a German poet, a poem that he had. And it's known as the Ode to Joy. Joyful, joyful, we adore thee. Sing the rest if you want. When he debuted that Ninth Symphony before a large audience, they had him on stage directing. But they told the orchestra to ignore him because he couldn't hear and he wouldn't know where they were. And they had out of sight to the audience another director. And they even gave the name of him. Well, when it was done, he was only 4 notes off from the director that could hear. But the audience went wild. They stood and were applauding, and he couldn't hear it. Somebody had to go up to him and turn him around to see the audience who were on their feet, gave him 5 standing ovations, waving their hands, women with scarves. They were so moved by this man who had opened to an unknown dimension that spoke and sang and played music within his being. and he was still giving and bringing increase to humanity. I love it. I love it. We're here to do that. Maybe not in that scope. George Washington Carver, one of my heroes, over 300 uses of the peanut, though over 150 uses of the sweet potato. This man was about bringing increase and good to humanity. Every day, he would get up early and meditate. And as he would say, I would talk with God. And he would begin each day with an intensive prayer, asking God to reveal to him the secrets, the unknown, secrets within flowers, within plants, within the soils, so that he might help the hungry of that time. Motivated by the heart. The heart, they say, is the altar of God. When you're listening to your heart, you're listening to God, because it's really not the past, it's the moment when it's being spoken in and through you, where music is playing or being said to you. The mind cannot capture God, truth, because it isn't capable of experiencing. You experience through the heart. The mind is all about concepts, images perhaps, but you have never felt anything with your mind. It's always with your being and with your heart, you see. And so when you make your heart king or queen, you make your head servant. That's the place to live. There was a girl who was in major traffic. This was in Maryland. True story. And there was a guy observed this happening in the cars ahead of him. There's a lot of stories about road rage. Well, this is a little bit different. So this was in, I think in 1998, and he shared what he observed. Basically, one morning there was this young lady that was in a compact car. She darted out into traffic, and the guy that she darted out in front of missed by just inches. He was furious. And so in a few seconds, they had to stop at a red light. And so he pulled up behind the offender, this lady, and didn't know her or anything. And he gets out of his car and starts coming. And the lady, seeing him coming, who happened to be very attractive, jumped from her car, ran to meet him, a big smile on her face. And before the man could say a word or know what was happening, she threw her arms around him, gave him a hug, planted on him a passionate kiss on the lips, and then abruptly turned and went back, got in her car, and drove off, leaving this man standing in the middle of the street, speechless, confused, embarrassed, but no longer angry. True story. That lady was enlightened. You know, she was in her heart. See, the heart moves spontaneously. You can't necessarily plan what's going to happen in the heart, because the heart has to be in the moment and go with the flow. She was able to do that. The last story I share with you is one of the best metaphors I've ever heard about the unknown and explaining how it's somehow known. Is given by Anita Moorjani, who wrote the book Dying to Be Me. She did it in a TED Talk, and actually when I do workshops, I often share about a 12-minute piece of this. And she, you see, she was dying of cancer, and she was in the final stages of lymphoma, and she was only hours away from dying. Everything was shutting down, and she went into a coma. So the doctor said, just a couple hours and she'll pass. Well, in the coma, she had a near-death experience, and in that near-death experience, she had clarity, and she came to know an expanse that was amazing. She met up with her father on the other side that was helping her, and her best friend who had recently died was there, and that was her experience. And she had to go back because they told her it wasn't her time. And so all of a sudden she came out of this coma, shocked the doctors. She was also told on the other side that she will heal rapidly. In a period of 5 weeks, she went from organs shutting down to basically 5 weeks being released from the hospital, cancer-free. Cancer-free. And being told why she had the cancer and that she was to go back and live her life fearlessly. Fearlessly. Now, her metaphor that I love is she said, that experience for me was like, imagine being placed in a big warehouse, but it's totally dark. You can't see a thing. And you've been given a flashlight. And with that flashlight, you take its beam and you put it on that spot and see, oh, what's that? And you put it on that spot and oh, you see that. And then you imagine one day, floodlights go on, and it opens the whole warehouse. And it's huge, goes on, and there are shelves with everything imaginable. Well, things you have seen, but things you've never seen, colors you've never seen. It was amazing. And you're seeing that. And then imagine the lights all go off. And you're back to your flashlight and one beam. That was her near-death experience. And she said, even though all you can see is what you place the beam of the flashlight onto, now having returned to this life, you now know there is much, much more that exists. Simultaneously and alongside of the things you can see, she said, there is so much more that is all around you even now, that is unknown to you, that is the goodness and greatness and expansiveness of God. She said, you now know that just because you cannot see them or experience these things doesn't mean it doesn't exist. I know it exists. So much more exists than we believe, than we experience. It's all just beyond our flashlight. We're here for increase, people. We're here to move from to. Listen closely. We're here to move from darkness into light. We're here to move from the false into the true. We're here to move from the finite into the infinite. We're here to move from the unreal into the real, from the limited into the unlimited, from confusion into harmony, from the temporal into the eternal, from humanity into divinity, from the material into the spiritual, from the visible into the invisible, from head into heart, from selfishness into selflessness, from earth into heaven, from separation into oneness. Oneness. Each day holds for every one of us an unknown dimension of God's good. More love, more joy, more peace. Expand the beam of your flashlight. God bless you all.
Watching this message today, I'd like to invite you to join us in person here on campus at Unity of Houston for Sunday morning or Wednesday evening services. If you can't be with us here on our campus, you can still join us live on Facebook or on our website, unityhouston.org, Sunday mornings at 11 a.m. Central.